Please, I was right here. Just 2 minutes.
You can stay here tonight. It's not much, but it's dry and it's safe.
Why would you do that for a stranger? Guess I wasn't that important after all.
Rain hammered the glass doors of Incheon International Airport as Amanda Johnson sprinted across the terminal, her camera bag banging against her hip, her suitcase wheels screaming against the polished floor. Her flight number blinked red on the departure board. Gate closed. She skidded to a stop in front of the counter, breath ragged, mascara starting to run from the sweat and the panic. "Please," she said to the airline agent, slapping her palm on the counter. "Please, I was right here. I was in the bathroom for 2 minutes. 2 minutes." The agent, a young Korean woman with a tight bun and a tighter smile, shook her head. "I am sorry, ma'am. Doors are closed. Next flight to Los Angeles is tomorrow evening. Fully booked, but there is a wait list." Amanda felt her stomach drop through the floor. She pulled out her phone to check her bank app, already knowing what she'd see. Her card had been declined twice that morning, some fraud flag from her bank back home, and customer service had put her on hold for 40 minutes before the call dropped when her phone died in an outlet that didn't work. She had exactly $11 in cash, a hotel reservation that expired at noon, and a suitcase full of clothes she'd packed for a 5-day trip that had somehow turned into a nightmare on day 4. She was Amanda Johnson, 27 years old, a Nigerian-American travel vlogger with 300,000 subscribers on a channel called Amanda on the Move, and in exactly 9 hours, she was going to be homeless in a foreign country with a dead phone, a frozen bank account, and absolutely no idea what she was going to do next. If you love a slow burn, stranded in a foreign country, forced proximity romance, you are about to fall in love with this one. So smash that subscribe button right now before you get lost in this story. Drop a like and comment where you're watching from tonight, because we are just getting started and this one is going to wreck you in the best way. Amanda had grown up in Houston, in a house that smelled like jollof rice on Sundays and sounded like her father's booming laugh on the phone with relatives back in Lagos, the daughter of a Nigerian father who ran a small logistics company and a Nigerian-American mother who taught high school chemistry. Her parents had wanted her to be a doctor. She had wanted to see the world. The compromise, if you could call it that, was that she'd finished a business degree, worked 2 miserable years at a marketing agency, and then quit the week she turned 25 to start filming herself eating street food in cities she'd never been to. Her father had not spoken to her for 3 months after that. Now, 2 years later, Amanda on the Move was actually working. Brands paid her to visit places, airlines comped her flights. She had built something real out of nothing but a ring light and stubbornness, and she was proud of that, even on the nights she cried in hotel bathrooms because she was lonely in a way she never let the camera see. Seoul had been supposed to be easy content, a week of street food, palace tours, a hanbok rental video that would definitely go viral, and a flight home in time for her cousin's baby shower. Instead, her camera had been stolen out of her bag on day 2, her card had been flagged on day 3, and now, on day 4, she'd missed the one flight home she could actually afford. Across the city, in a narrow alley in Yeonnam-dong neighborhood, a small cafe called Haru Cafe was closing for the night. Junho Kang locked the front door, flipped the wooden sign to closed, and stood for a moment in the quiet, looking at the espresso machine his mother had bought second-hand 11 years ago. She was gone now, 3 years gone, and the cafe was his, whether he wanted the responsibility or not. Junho was 29, tall, quiet in the particular way that made people either assume he was rude or assume he was sad, when really he was just careful. He didn't like small talk. He didn't like crowds. He liked the specific, comforting math of coffee, the 28 grams of grounds, the 93-degree water, the same 4 songs he played on repeat because new music made him anxious in ways he couldn't explain. His last barista had quit 2 weeks ago to move to Busan with his boyfriend, and he had not gotten around to hiring anyone new, mostly because the idea of interviewing strangers made his chest tight. His younger sister, Yuna, called him almost every night to ask if he'd eaten dinner, if he'd talked to anyone besides customers, if he was going to die alone in that cafe surrounded by coffee beans and regret. He always told her he was fine. He was not entirely sure that was true. Yuna had moved to Seoul's east side for university and never quite found her way back to the old neighborhood, not since their mother's funeral. And Junho understood why, even if it stung a little. Grief lived in the walls of that cafe for both of them. For him, staying felt like the only way to keep his mother close. For Yuna, staying away felt like the only way to breathe. Neither of them had ever said this out loud to each other, but it sat between their phone calls anyway, quiet and unresolved, the same way most things in Junho's life tended to stay quiet and unresolved until they simply couldn't anymore.
Rain was still falling hard when Junho stepped out to bring in the sandwich board sign from the sidewalk, and that was when he saw her. A woman was standing under the narrow awning 2 doors down, soaked to the bone, a suitcase tipped on its side beside her, her arms wrapped around herself. She was clearly not from here. She was clearly, from the look on her face, completely out of options. He almost went back inside. That was his instinct always, to disappear into the safety of the counter and the machines and the noise of the espresso grinder. But something about the way she kept checking her phone and then closing her eyes, like she was praying it would say something different the second time, made him stop. "Excuse me," he said in careful English. "Are you okay?" Amanda looked up, startled, and for a second she just stared at him, this tall man in a canvas apron with rain-damp hair falling over his eyebrows, standing there with an expression she couldn't quite read. "I'm fine," she said automatically, the way you say fine when you are, in every possible sense, the complete opposite of fine. Then her voice cracked. "Actually, no, I am so not fine. I missed my flight, my card got frozen, my hotel checkout was at noon, and I have $11 to my name in a city where I don't speak the language. So no, I'm not okay. But thank you for asking." Junho blinked. He had not expected an actual answer. Most people, when asked if they were okay, said fine and kept walking. This woman had just handed him her entire crisis in one breath, and something about the honesty of it, the exhaustion in it, made him do something he would later tell his sister he still didn't fully understand. "Come inside," he said, "out of the rain. I will make you something warm. You don't have to pay." Amanda almost laughed. "You don't know me. I could be anybody." "You're clearly not a thief," Junho said, glancing at her soaked suitcase and her ruined mascara. "A thief would have better luck than this." That surprised a real laugh out of her, wet and startled, and something in her chest loosened just slightly for the first time in 6 hours. She followed him inside. The cafe was small, warm, smelling like roasted beans and cinnamon, string lights strung along the exposed brick, a single dried flower in a jar on every table. It was the kind of place that felt like it had been decorated by someone who loved it, not someone who was trying to impress anyone. Amanda sat at the counter while Junho disappeared behind it, and a few minutes later he set a steaming mug in front of her, something that smelled like ginger and honey. "It's not coffee. Coffee will make you more anxious right now. This will help you sleep if you can sleep." Amanda stared. "You just met me and you already know what I need better than I do," she said, wrapping both hands around the warm mug, letting the steam curl up against her cold, tired face. Junho's ears went slightly pink, and he looked away, busying himself with wiping down a counter that was already clean. "I don't know that. I just guessed." They sat in a strange, comfortable silence for a moment, the rain drumming on the window, and then Amanda, because she had never once in her life been able to leave silence alone, started talking. She told him about the missed flight, the frozen card, the stolen camera 2 days earlier, and somewhere in the middle of it, without entirely meaning to, she told him about her father not speaking to her for 3 months, about the loneliness of building something from nothing, about how she filmed herself smiling in beautiful places, while sometimes feeling like she was drowning. Junho listened. He didn't interrupt, he didn't offer advice she hadn't asked for, he just listened, the way almost nobody actually listens anymore, and when she finally ran out of words, he said quietly, "You can stay here tonight. There's a small room upstairs, storage mostly, but there's a couch. It's not much, but it's dry and it's safe." Amanda stared at him. Why would you do that for a stranger? Junho thought about it for a long moment, like the question deserved an honest answer instead of a polite one. Because 3 years ago, my mother would have done the same thing. She used to say, "A closed door in the rain is the loneliest sound in the world." I don't like that sound. I never learned how to walk past it. Amanda's throat tightened in a way she wasn't prepared for. She had interviewed hundreds of strangers on camera, smiled through countless awkward encounters, and somehow this quiet man with rain in his hair had just said something that cracked her open more than any of it. "I don't even know your name," she said softly. "Junho," he said shyly. "Kang Junho." "Amanda," she said. "Amanda Johnson." Neither of them said anything else for a moment, but something had quietly and unmistakably shifted in that tiny cafe, something neither of them was ready to name yet. And outside, the rain kept falling steadily on, like it had nowhere else to be either. If this is already giving you butterflies, drop a comment right now telling me if you'd have trusted a stranger who offered you shelter like that, because I want to know what you would have done in Amanda's shoes. And while you're down there, make sure you've hit subscribe, because episode 2 is coming and it gets so much messier than this. The next morning, Amanda woke up on the small couch in the storage room above the cafe to the smell of coffee drifting up through the floorboards and the sound of Korean pop music playing low. For a second, she forgot where she was, and then it all came rushing back. The missed flight, the frozen card, the kind stranger with sad eyes who had given her a place to sleep instead of an easy way to make her someone else's problem. She sat up, smoothed down her hair as best she could, and went downstairs. Junho was behind the counter, already 3 hours into his morning, flour dusted on his forearms from the pastries he baked himself before opening. He glanced up when she appeared on the stairs, and something in his expression shifted quick and involuntary before he looked back down at the dough in front of him. "Good morning," he said. "There's coffee and bread if you're hungry." "You didn't have to do all this," Amanda said, sliding onto a stool at the counter. "I know," Junho said simply and didn't elaborate, and somehow that was exactly the right answer. Over breakfast, Amanda laid out her situation properly now that her head was clearer. Her bank was telling her the fraud flag would take 3 to 5 business days to clear. Her passport was fine, thank God. That had been zipped safely in an inner pocket the day her camera was stolen. But without money, she couldn't rebook her flight, couldn't extend her hotel, couldn't really do anything except wait. "You could stay here," Junho said, and then, as if hearing how that sounded, added quickly, "I mean, I could use help. My last barista left, I've been doing everything myself, and honestly, I am terrible at the register. I mess up the orders when it's busy, and my English is decent, but a lot of my customers are foreigners now, and I lose them halfway through explaining the menu. You could work here, for pay, just until your card clears. It solves both of our problems." Amanda studied him for a long moment. It was, on paper, an insane idea. Work an under-the-table job at a cafe owned by a man she'd known for less than 24 hours, in a country where she was already stranded, with a visa that technically did not permit employment.
But she also had $11 and nowhere else to go, and there was something about Junho, some quiet steadiness, that made the insane idea feel less like a risk and more like a raft in the middle of a flood. "Okay," Amanda said, "but I have conditions." Junho raised an eyebrow. "Conditions?" "1, you teach me actual Korean, not just menu words. 2, I get to film some of this for my channel, obviously, blurring anything you don't want shown. And 3, she said, pointing at him, you have to actually smile at customers. You've got resting sad boy face, and it's honestly bad for business." For the first time since she'd met him, Junho laughed, a real laugh, short and surprised, like it escaped before he could stop it. "Deal," he said, "except the smiling. I make no promises about the smiling. My face doesn't really do that on command, apparently, according to my sister, who has been telling me this for years." They shook on it, and Amanda felt, for the first time in 4 exhausting days, like something good was actually happening to her. Word spread fast in Yeonnam-dong, faster than either of them expected. It started small, a regular customer, an elderly woman named Mrs. O, who came in every morning for her Americano, noticed the new girl behind the counter, this warm, funny, strikingly beautiful woman with the biggest smile Mrs. O had ever seen, paired with the quietest, most awkward cafe owner in the neighborhood. "You two look good together," Mrs. O announced on Amanda's 3rd day, loud enough for the whole cafe to hear. "We're not together," Amanda said quickly, laughing it off, while Junho suddenly became extremely interested in cleaning the milk steamer. "Not yet," Mrs. O said, unbothered, sipping her coffee with the satisfaction of a woman who had seen this story before. Amanda started filming small clips for her channel, careful to keep Junho's face out of frame at first, since he'd asked nervously if she could. She filmed the espresso machine hissing, the pastries cooling on their racks, the string lights glowing in the afternoon sun, the little dried flowers in their jars. She captioned one video, "Stranded in Seoul with no money, and this shy cafe owner gave me a job and a place to stay, no questions asked," and posted it before bed without thinking much of it. She woke up to 400,000 views. The comments were flooded, an avalanche of hearts and question marks and demands for more. People wanted to know who he was. People wanted to know if there was chemistry. People wanted, specifically and loudly, to know if Amanda was going to fall in love with the mystery cafe owner. And within 2 days, half the comments on every video weren't even about the coffee or the city. They were about them too, about the way Junho's ears went pink when Amanda teased him on camera, about the way he'd started, almost without noticing, angling himself so he was always in frame, even though he'd sworn he didn't want to be filmed. The cafe started filling up in a way it never had before. Foreign tourists who'd seen the videos began showing up, ordering elaborate drinks just for an excuse to linger, hoping to catch a glimpse of the pairing everyone online had already started calling Haru Cafe Boy and the vlogger. Local customers, delighted at the sudden foot traffic, started teasing Junho mercilessly, especially Mrs. O, who had appointed herself the unofficial chairwoman of what she now openly called Team Junho and Amanda. "You're famous now," Amanda told him one evening after they'd closed up and were counting the till together, the cafe quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator. "Best week of sales you've had all year, according to you." "I'm not sure I like being famous," Junho admitted, not looking up from the register. "I liked it better when it was quiet, when it was just me." Amanda felt a small pang of guilt. "Do you want me to stop filming here?" He was quiet for a moment, long enough that she thought she'd upset him. Then he said, so soft she almost missed it, "No, I don't mind the customers. I don't mind the noise. I think I just mind that it makes me realize how much I'd gotten used to being alone,
and I'm not sure I want to go back to that now." Amanda's hands stilled on the cash drawer. She looked up at him, and he was looking at her, really looking, in a way that made her whole chest feel tight and warm at once. And for a second, just a second, she thought he might close the distance between them. Then the bell above the door jingled, breaking the spell, and they both jumped apart like teenagers caught somewhere they shouldn't be. But not everyone watching Amanda's videos was celebrating the fairy tale. As her clips kept climbing, so did the noise underneath them, and by the end of that week, a certain kind of comment had started to multiply. Some viewers accused Amanda of using a grieving man's small business for content. Others said far worse, ugly things about what an American woman was really doing filming herself in a stranger's cafe late at night, insinuations that made Amanda's stomach turn every time she read them. She tried not to read them. She read them anyway, the way you can never quite stop pressing on a bruise. It came to a head in person 2 days later, when a woman in her 30s, clearly recognizing Amanda from the videos, walked up to the counter with her phone already out, filming. "So, this is the famous cafe," the woman said loudly, for her own camera, not really to Amanda at all. "Is it true you basically guilt-tripped him into giving you free rent? That's what everyone online is saying. Poor guy just lost his mom and you show up needing a place to crash. Very convenient." The cafe went quiet again, the second time that week, and Amanda felt her face go hot, humiliation and fury tangled together so tightly she couldn't tell which one was winning. "That's not what happened," Amanda said, keeping her voice level with an effort that cost her something. "Sure it isn't," the woman said, smirking at her own phone screen. "You people always have a story." Junho was there before Amanda even realized he'd moved, stepping around the counter to stand beside her, his voice low and absolutely unshaking in a way she had not heard from him before. "I think you should leave, now." "I'm a paying customer," the woman said. "You haven't paid for anything, and you are not welcome here. Please, go." The woman huffed, muttered something under her breath about how she was going to post this too, and stormed out, the bell jingling with none of its usual cheerfulness. The cafe stayed silent for a beat longer, and then, slowly, customers went back to their conversations, and Mrs. O reached over and patted Amanda's hand without a word, which somehow undid Amanda more than the confrontation itself had. "Thank you," Amanda said quietly to Junho once things had settled. "You didn't do anything wrong," Junho said, still visibly rattled, his hands not quite steady as he wiped down the counter that didn't need wiping. "I won't let anyone talk to you like that in my cafe, not ever." Amanda looked at him for a long moment, this quiet man who barely spoke above a murmur most days, who had just stood in front of a stranger's camera and defended her without a second's hesitation, and she felt something shift dangerously inside her, something that no longer felt like gratitude or friendship or the safety of a temporary arrangement. It felt like the beginning of falling, and it terrified her exactly as much as it thrilled her. Okay, if you felt that almost kiss energy through the screen, comment the word butterflies right now. I want to see this comment section flooded, and if you haven't liked this video yet, do it now because I promise you, what happens in the next 10 minutes is going to make you scream at your screen. The interruption was a delivery man, thankfully, dropping off a shipment of coffee beans, and the moment passed, but something had cracked open between them that neither could fully close again. Over the following days, small things started happening. Junho started remembering how Amanda liked her tea before she even asked. Amanda started noticing the way he hummed under his breath when he thought no one was listening, always the same 4 songs.
They started staying later after closing, not because there was work to do, but because neither of them wanted to be the one to say goodnight first. Amanda's bank finally cleared her card on day 7, the fraud flag lifted, her funds fully accessible again. She could have booked a flight home that same afternoon. She didn't. "I want to stay a little longer," she told her best friend Deja on a video call from the storage room couch that had somehow become her actual bedroom. "The content is insane right now. My numbers are through the roof, and the sponsors are already reaching out." "Uh-huh," Deja said, unconvinced, arching one eyebrow at the camera. "And that's the only reason you're staying in Seoul with a man who looks at you like you personally hung the moon?" "He does not look at me like that," Amanda said, feeling her face heat up. "Girl, I watched 3 of your videos back to back. He looks at you like that in every single one." Amanda didn't have a response for that, mostly because she knew deep down that Deja was right, and she wasn't sure yet what she wanted to do about it. 2 weeks in, the cafe's popularity had exploded to the point where Junho had to hire 2 additional part-time staff just to keep up, both college students who were more than a little starstruck to be working somewhere that had, in their words, main character energy now. Business was better than it had ever been. Junho, for the first time in 3 years, wasn't lying awake at night doing anxious math about whether the cafe would survive another slow season. But not everyone was thrilled about the change. On a Tuesday afternoon, while Amanda was filming a segment behind the counter, showing her subscribers how to properly steam milk for a latte, a woman walked in and stopped dead in the doorway, staring at the scene in front of her like she'd walked into the wrong life entirely. She was Korean, elegant, dressed like she'd stepped out of a fashion editorial, and the moment Junho looked up and saw her, every ounce of color drained from his face. "Sua," he said, the name coming out strangled like it had been punched out of him. The woman, Sua, looked slowly around the cafe, at the new decor, at the crowd of customers, at Amanda standing behind the counter with a milk pitcher still in her hand, and her mouth curved into a smile that did not reach her eyes. "Wow," Sua said, in accented but fluent English, clearly for Amanda's benefit. "You really did change everything after I left, didn't you, Junho? New cafe, new girl. Guess I really wasn't that important after all." The entire cafe went silent. Even Mrs. O, mid-sip, lowered her coffee cup to watch what shaped up. Amanda's stomach dropped straight through the floor. "Who," she said slowly, looking between the two of them, "is Sua?" Junho didn't answer right away, and the seconds stretched out long and unbearable, and the last thing Amanda saw before the shot cut was the stricken look on his face, the look of a man who had clearly not expected his past to walk back through that door on the exact day his future started to feel possible. If your heart just dropped, I need you to breathe, because I promise you this story is not done breaking you tonight. Hit that subscribe button right now if you haven't. Drop a comment telling me who you think Sua is to him. An ex, a fiancé, family. I want your theories. And get ready, because episode 2 picks up in exactly this moment, and it does not slow down from here. The silence in the cafe stretched so long that even the espresso machine seemed to hold its breath. Amanda set the milk pitcher down carefully, her hands not entirely steady, and forced herself to keep her expression neutral for the customers watching, for the camera still rolling on the tripod by the register, for her own pride. "Sua used to work here," Junho said, his voice tight, controlled in the way people control their voice when they are trying very hard not to let it shake. "I did more than work here," Sua said lightly, stepping further into the cafe like she owned every inch of it, trailing one manicured finger along the edge of the counter Amanda had wiped down not 10 minutes earlier. Amanda felt something hot and complicated twist in her chest, something that felt embarrassingly close to jealousy, which she had absolutely no right to feel about a man she had known for 2 weeks. She swallowed it down and pasted on the warm, professional smile she used for every difficult customer on every difficult filming day. "Welcome to Haru Cafe," she said smoothly. "Can I get you something?"
Sua's eyes flicked to her, assessing, cool. "You're the vlogger," she said. It wasn't a question. "I've seen the videos. Everyone has, actually. Half my old coworkers sent them to me, laughing how funny it was that Junho suddenly has a girlfriend after swearing off dating for 3 years." "We're not," Amanda started. "Not yet," Mrs. O chimed in from her corner table, unable to help herself, and several customers actually laughed, breaking a little of the tension, though Sua's smile only sharpened. "I'm not here to cause problems," Sua said, though the way she said it made it very clear she absolutely was here to cause problems. "I'm actually back in Seoul for work. I heard the cafe was doing well again. I wanted to see it for myself. And I wanted to see you, Junho. Is that so strange?" Junho's jaw was tight. "You could have called."
"You changed your number," Sua said, and for just a second, under the polish, something genuinely hurt flickered across her face before she smoothed it away again. "I guess that answers whether you wanted to hear from me." The bell above the door jingled as a new group of customers walked in, oblivious to the tension thick enough to cut, and Junho used the interruption to excuse himself, moving quickly to greet them, his shoulders rigid in a way Amanda had never seen before. Sua watched him go, then turned back to Amanda, and the friendly mask slipped entirely. "A word of advice," Sua said quietly, just for Amanda now. "Junho falls hard and fast, and he falls for the idea of people before he actually knows them. He fell for me in exactly 2 weeks, told me he loved me in exactly 2 months, and it took me 3 years to realize I'd fallen for someone who needed saving more than he needed a partner. You've been here, what, 2 weeks? I give it 2 months before you're either gone with your camera and your million new followers, or before you're the one who ends up needing saved. Either way, I've seen this movie before." She turned and walked out before Amanda could find a single word to say back, the bell jingling cheerfully behind her, completely at odds with the storm she'd just left in her wake. Amanda stood frozen behind the counter for a long moment, her heart hammering, her mind racing through everything Sua had just said, trying to figure out how much of it was cruelty and how much of it might, terribly, be true. That night, after closing, after the last customer had gone and the 2 part-time students had clocked out, Amanda found Junho sitting alone at one of the small tables, staring at nothing, a cold cup of coffee in front of him that he clearly hadn't touched. "Do you want to talk about it?" Amanda asked, gently, sliding into the seat across from him. Junho was quiet for a long time. "Sua and I dated for 3 years. She worked here when my mother was still alive. After my mother died, I think I leaned on her too hard, needed her too much, and I don't think that's fair to do to someone you love. She left 18 months ago, took a job in Singapore. I don't blame her. I was not easy to be with back then. I'm not sure I'm easy to be with now." "For what it's worth," Amanda said carefully, "the past 2 weeks you haven't seemed hard to be with at all." Junho looked up at her, something raw and uncertain in his expression. "That's because for the past 2 weeks I've had a reason to try." The words hung in the air between them, heavier than either of them had probably intended, and Amanda felt her heart climb straight up into her throat. "Junho," she started. "I know," he said quietly, cutting her off, not unkindly. "I'm leaving eventually. You have a whole life waiting for you back home. I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted you to know why today happened the way it did." Amanda reached across the small table and covered his hand with hers, and he went very still, staring down at their joined hands like he wasn't entirely sure it was real. "I'm not thinking about leaving right now," she said softly. "I'm thinking about right now." For a long moment, neither of them moved, the cafe dark around them except for the string lights still glowing warm along the exposed brick. The whole world narrowed down to the small table and the space between their hands,
and Amanda thought, with a kind of dizzy certainty, that he was finally going to lean in, that whatever had been building for 2 weeks was finally going to break the surface. And then Junho's phone buzzed loudly on the table between them, shattering the moment completely, and when he glanced down at the screen, his whole face changed, the softness draining out of it and something like fear rushing in to take its place. "What is it?" Amanda asked. Junho stared at the message for a long moment before he answered, and his voice, when it came, was barely above a whisper. "It's my landlord, the building. He's selling it. We have 30 days to either buy the lease outright or the cafe closes for good." Amanda felt the floor drop out from under her for the second time that day, and outside the string lights flickered once in the wind, like even the cafe itself understood that everything was about to change. 30 days, Amanda repeated, her mind already racing through numbers she didn't have. Junho, what does the lease actually cost? Buyout? Full purchase? Whatever they're asking. Junho set his phone face down on the table like he couldn't stand to look at it a second longer. "More than I have," he said quietly, "more than I could save in 3 years, let alone 30 days. My mother always rented. She never had the capital to buy the building outright, and neither do I. The new owner already has an offer from someone who wants to turn this whole block into serviced apartments. He told me himself. He said he'd give me the chance to match it out of respect for my mother, but he didn't sound like a man who expected me to actually manage it." "Then we find a way," Amanda said, and she was surprised by how fiercely the words came out, how much she meant them. "We just did 2 weeks of the best sales this place has ever seen, you said it yourself. The videos are still climbing. There has to be something. A loan, investors, a crowdfund, something."
"Amanda," Junho said, and there was something almost pleading in the way he said her name now, like he needed her to understand something before she got her hopes up any further. "This isn't your problem to fix. This is my mother's cafe. My name is the only one on that lease. If it closes because of choices that were made long before you ever walked in out of the rain." "It became my problem the day you let me in out of that rain," Amanda shot back, her voice cracking despite herself. "You didn't have to help me. You chose to, so don't stand there and tell me I don't get to choose to help you back." For a moment, neither of them said anything, the weight of the last 2 weeks pressing down on the small space between them, the cafe dark and quiet, and suddenly fragile in a way it had never felt before, not even on the worst nights after his mother died, according to what he'd told her. "There's something else," Junho said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. "The owner mentioned Sua's name today. Apparently her new company handles commercial redevelopment in this district. He said she was the one who flagged this block as a target property. I don't know if that's a coincidence. I don't want to believe it isn't, but I don't know anymore." Amanda felt a cold, sinking dread settle low in her stomach. "You think she's trying to take the cafe? On purpose? After what happened this afternoon?" "I don't know what to think," Junho admitted, dragging a hand down his face, looking, for the first time since Amanda had met him, genuinely lost. 3 years ago, I would have said Sua could never do something like that. But 3 years ago, I also would have said she'd never walk back into my life the same week I finally started letting myself feel something again. So clearly, I don't know as much as I thought I did." Amanda reached over and gently pulled his hand away from his face, holding it between both of hers, forcing him to look at her instead of at the storm building behind his eyes. "If whatever this is, whatever Sua wants, whatever the landlord wants, we are not finding out alone at midnight with cold coffee and no plan. We regroup tomorrow, we call your sister, we look at every option, even the ones that feel impossible right now. Okay?"
Junho looked down at their joined hands for a long moment, and when he looked back up at her, something in his face had softened just slightly, just enough. "Okay," he said. "Together, then." "Together," Amanda echoed, and neither of them let go of the other's hand for a long time after that, the string lights glowing steady above them, even as the 30-day clock, silent and merciless, had already begun to count down. If you are not on the edge of your seat right now, I don't know what to tell you, because we are just getting started, and I need every single one of you to hit subscribe before this episode ends, because episode 2 is where things get so much worse before they can get better. Suah is not done, the cafe is in real trouble, and Amanda is about to be forced to choose between the career she built from nothing and the man who gave her a place to stay when she had absolutely nowhere else to go. Comment right now and tell me, Team Junho and Amanda, or do you think Suah still has a shot? Because I promise you, this comment section is about to get heated, and I want to see all of it. Drop a like if this episode had you holding your breath. Subscribe if you want to see how far this goes, and turn on notifications because you do not want to miss episode 2 of Seoul Café Love. I'll see you there.